Hi, everyone. It's Jan Guarino, Fearless Watercolors. We're continuing some portraits tonight. And so we're going to be doing another Native American, which I just really love this subject matter. As you could see from over my shoulder there, here. There's one that I did, same guy, different angle. And I cropped this one a little tighter, but let's get started. And I really look forward to painting this one with you. So let me switch cameras. Here's the image that we're doing. Very strong cast shadows, very strong. Yeah, so I do want you guys to have some of your shadow violet available or moon glow, and maybe give your a fresh squeeze. This is how we're going to do the feathers, is with a little shadow violet. And it's not a bad place to start. We do have that really strong cast shadow, and we're going to be using orange and blue, of course, and of course, dragon's blood. The blue is probably going to be a turquoise that I'm going to be using, and we're going to actually be using the turquoise in some of the face as well. That's just because, yeah, it's because I just love adding that color to the face for shadows. It looks really, really smart. So here's a little bit of shadow violet that I just put into my mixing bowl. You could see that I'm not overly concerned with my mixing bowl being quote unquote dirty, because they're beautiful colors. And so if I pick up some of those colors, I'm hardly worried about that. And so what I would like to do is just take my number 10 brush and just spread this out with a little bit of water. That's my shadow violet, and it's wet paint. So you just have to spread it out a little bit just to activate it with a little bit of water. And what I'm going to do now is actually give ourselves a little bit of shadow that, you know what, before I do that, hold on one second. It's going to be really nice if you take your spray bottle and you just spray a little bit of your paper. And now you could use your dot sprayer, certainly. I'm just really just hitting the, I got pretty wet, I have to say. It's really going to spread a lot. It didn't really dot spray quite the way I thought it was going to, but that's okay. I really don't never worry about anything with that. And now what I'm going to do is just give some of the in-between feathers and bring them up into, they're larger on the outside. And when they come up to the headdress, they get a little bit smaller. And that is going to give us a good deal of our headdress feathers. And I'll just put this over here so you could kind of see where I am, where I'm building some of these. And this is going onto his shoulder here. And you can see this is already breaking apart. I'll go a little closer to show you how this is just breaking apart a little bit. So yeah, you want that effect. That is one of the beautiful things about shadow violet, is that it breaks apart that way. So we want to have that effect. I'm just going in and doing a few more of the shadows, a little bit more deeper, darker in spots, and letting them just kind of go right off to the edge of the paper. And give the headdress just a little bit of shadow, maybe with a smaller brush. This is my number 10, just along the shadow areas a little bit. So meaning, let me go closer and show you where I am with this. There's some nice shadows that are on either side of that white, those white feathers kind of dangling down. So I'm just adding a little bit of darkness to that and feathering it actually goes into his face a little bit and giving it a little bit of deeper tone right there. Okay. And this is pretty much his shoulder here. And one more on the top, maybe right up here. Now, while that's drying, it already looks like feathers, and we didn't paint feathers. I just love that. I know I'm going to be using my red and my turquoise. So I'm going to, while this is a little wet still from my dot sprayer, I'm just going to drop in a little bit of that red. This is my deep red, but you could use any red. Doesn't matter. You could use both reds, the light red and the dark red. And I want the idea of just making sure that all the colors exist everywhere. So I'm dropping in just a little bit of turquoise into the headdress. And maybe even, I actually do have some turquoise here. I did not add that. That is Shadow Violet doing that work for me, which is, you know, fabulous if that can happen, if you let it happen. Yeah. And just letting all of that kind of run together. Just charging up those ends a little bit, very soft. It's feathers, so it really should be on the softer side. Building a little bit of the detail coming from the rest of his headdress in the turquoise. And I'm going to actually just drop in a little bit of Shadow Violet just to tone it down, just a little bit after I finish this right here. Just a suggestion of his headdress. That's all you really need. And then just adding a little bit of softness to the bottom where it's in, it's sitting on his head. Just adding a little bit of a shadow. We're going to be going back into that area. Now we have this issue of what are we doing? This did not spread as much as I want, so I'm just going to add a little water over here just to make sure it spreads and keeps it nice and soft. This is painting, yes, loose and free for sure. And I like the Shadow Violet because it does break into blues and pinks. So there we're at. We got a lot of the headdress kind of done, which I really didn't want to fuss over that too much. So yeah, that's really important. We'll go back into it. But for now, that's really good. That's all I want to do right now. And I'm going to let this is just my brush with a little bit of water on it. I'm going to let some of these colors sort of bleed out along the side of his face up until his area here with the right up to his other shoulder, his right shoulder there. And what you could see that this is bleeding out really beautifully. I love that. Don't be afraid of that. That is what watercolor is all about. And now I'm just going to drop in this wet area some suggestion of background with my shadow violet right up to his edge of his face, down the white area that has his shoulder and the white part of his headdress. And now don't be afraid to add a little bit of that red poked out, add a little bit of turquoise right into that area, and let the background be there. Don't wait until later to build a background. And so use all three colors. Well, the red, my red bled out, so I didn't have to add more red. And just use your shadow violet, your blue, and your red to create this kind of looser, out of focus background. If it's not moving, just take your paper and just tilt it a little bit so that it moves around. We'll see if we need to do more. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. That is, but it's a good start. Nice, loose background. Okay, so you should be looking somewhat like that. I'm adding a little bit of separation to those white pieces kind of coming down off of his headdress. I added, that's a dry mark. And I'm just going to give this a little bit of water to let it feather out a little bit. Let the lines that you have, the pencil marks, not hold you in, but give you an opportunity to go beyond them. Don't let them hold you in. If you want to paint outside of them, they are just suggestions. They are not, they're just to guide us. That's all they are. Don't let that hold you back. So a little bit of reverse definition, and we sort of have that start of the red, the white pieces coming from his headdress. And that's really where I want to start. I do want to go in and work on his face a little bit. So that is going to be next. And just keep in mind that if you are looking to paint looser, think that it's okay to paint faster. Okay. That's really the way that you get yourself to be a little looser, is by working a little faster. So at this point, there's nothing perfect. There's nothing that is precise. There's nothing that is everything is just nothing that you have to concern yourself with. All of that can be added in details a little bit later on. So the next step is going to be working some tone in his face. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go back to my mixing area here. I have this really nice pink here. I'm going to take a little bit of my dragon's blood right here. Just mix a little bit of dragon's blood, pull it out. And that's really, with a little bit of pink, it's toning it down and making it a little bit cooler than it normally is. So let me go a little closer and just show you. This is kind of the color I have. This is a little bit of a pink that I picked up. Again, I hardly worry about any color that's in my mixing area. I just don't find that I have to worry about. There's usually a color in here that is pretty good. So I'm just mixing a little bit of this pinky dragon's blood. And we're going to add our first wash to the face. And this is going to be, yeah, it's a great color. Okay, don't worry about eyes. Right now, his eyes are really in shadow. We are going to concern ourselves mostly with that hard cast shadow. I'm even going to add water right over that one area on his cheek. Keep that that's a softer shadow. It's not as hard cast shadow. This here, I gave you the marks, are the hard cast shadow right down his nose. Don't save the nostrils. Go through the nostrils and don't save those because they're going to go darker. It's a mistake that people do, that they save their darks. Come right down to the area between the nose and the lip. Go right through the lip. His lower lip is in sun, so leave that alone. Don't paint the lower lip. The shadow of the upper lip and of the lower chin, where the chin is, it will give you everything you need for that upper lip, that lower lip to be a lower lip. Just going to lift this a little bit, go a little lighter right there. That little highlight on his cheekbone. A lifting technique. Take your brush, just lift a little bit, and there it is. Not fully white, but it's close enough. It's not a hard cast shadow. Come right down, go through the shadow we added before. Don't save anything on his chin. That dark shadow under his lower lip. Perfect. I'm just mixing a little bit more as I'm going along. I color his chin into his neck. Right onto his shirt. And this is really shadow over here under his chin by his neck. But don't worry, just add some of that color there and we'll go in and make that a lot darker later on. You should look something like that. If you're getting a little bit of water blossoms, don't worry, we're going to fix those. We're going to go through all of those. I never really worry about watercolor blossoms because, number one, they're part of watercolor. And number two, we can always go in and when it's dry, do something with it. So I'm just going back over my hard shadow with a little bit more color. The eye area, you can go a little bit darker. This is the same combination. Some very hard cast shadows, which is one of the things that totally attracted me to this, to wanting to paint this. And you can see his face starting to take some shape just with shadow. Your conditions could be different than mine. My room is pretty warm, so things are drying pretty fast. When you add more color, add a little less water and a little bit more paint, and you will find that it won't get as many blossoms. But blossoms, don't worry about them. Don't worry about them at all. I have them, and I will show you how to adjust them. I'm going to go in and work on that other eye a little bit more. And this other big shadow right here. If you follow shadow shapes, you have got the face. And I loved the fact that these shadows were so strong that they really spoke to every feature without worrying about anything else. The right nostril, so that's his other eye. Happens so fast. His other nostril's right here. We'll get to make that one darker when it's a drier area. And that nice sharp shadow that's under his cheekbone, that's just to the right of his mouth. Boom. There it is. Yeah, I got some blossoms going on here. I know I'm going to be going in and going darker with it, so I hardly am worried about any of that. The most important thing here is that you have all these great kick shadows. That's the most important thing. The eye is just a shadow suggestion. I'm going in and just making it a skosh darker. Again, it's sort of drying pretty fast in my environment. And so here's what I'm going to say to you guys. If you stopped right now, you'd know what this painting is all about. You would know it's a Native American. You would know he's got a headdress on, and you would know you'd know he has very sharp features and is sitting with a very, very proud expression on his face. You would have all of that information in a nanosecond. I have some blossoms here, hardly worried. We're going to be going back in and making a lot of that a lot darker. But I want this, let me show you something here. While the face is a little bit wet, I want to add this nice dark here, which is my shadow violet, which will softly suggest hair, ear, neck. Just the start of some nice deep dark color. Now I'm going to shock you a little bit. I'm going to shock you a little bit. Okay. I'm going to take my turquoise and I'm just going to drop in a couple of areas that I want a little bit more. Let me go closer. Just a hint of some other color going on in there. Turquoise on the face. Yes, I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. I knew I was going to do it. I wanted to do it. I'm going to put a little bit on his lip also. Let me go closer for you. It may look a little odd now. It will not when we get done, I assure you. Gonna let a little bit more of this dry. A lot of it is dry. I'm trying to work areas that are a little drier, like this cast shadow under his nose is dry right here, but it's not just the nostril. There's a whole shadow under his nose. It's a softer shadow. You can't be afraid of these shadows. They're everything. This whole thing, it's about, to me, the feathers and the shadows. If you can't see the shadows that clearly, what you're capable of, what you're able to do is print out a black and white and get rid of the color. And this way you can see the colors a lot clearer. I mean, you could see the shadows a lot clearer. Sorry. You could get rid of the colors so that you see the shadows a lot clearer. That is a great way to find shadows, find shadow shapes. This is still a little too wet for me to go back in. I'm going to add another layer of color to that area there. Yeah, if there's a little coolness to your paper or a little bump, it's not the time to go back in. It's time to just wait a little bit and work where there are drier spots. Really no need to do eyeballs or anything like that. It's just not there. So we don't really have to worry about any of that. Okay, this is where we're at right now. Let's build away from his face. This is wet here, so I'm going to move away from that, and I'm going to work on his tribal dress a little bit more. So let's go there, and I'm going to be using predominantly our colors of our reds and the turquoise. That's what I'm going to be doing. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get some tone in here. You don't want to paint all these pieces, okay? That's going to be not really a good way. It's going to look all pieced together. So much in the same way that we started this little area up here with the shadow violet, we're going to continue down with that. I'm going to switch to my bigger brush, and I'm just going to give this area some tone with my shadow violet, just a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm just sort of finding areas that sort of look like they went into a little bit more shadow on his in his outfit here, his this is quite a lot, but we want to give the feeling that we don't want it to be stiff. His hair is here. I definitely want to work on that a little bit. There's some beautiful fringe here, which I want to show you a little bit of that. This is just a way in which to get a little bit of tone going into all of these pieces. Because if we just paint it with just our colors, it's going to be too vibrant. It's not going to look like it's in shadow. So I'm just giving it a little bit of, all of my colors will be fine on top of this. That's the feeling I want to get. Now, I believe that this area here that I'm in, right here, is probably his braids. So we're going to begin suggesting them just by giving some little dark twists and whatnot, much in the way we did the shadows, the feathers. And don't worry about trying to keep up with me. If you're in a different pace, you'll get the recording. So don't worry about that. You can go at your own pace. I am describing everything that I'm doing so that you will have it as a means and way to go back to. So don't feel rushed. If this is too fast for you, I get it. I understand completely. Don't work at my pace, work at your pace. But I am describing everything so that you will have it all there for you. So this is just shadow violet that I'm doing here. Very often I hear, it was too fast. I tried to keep up. If a lot of my students just find that, this pace, they've gotten faster at as they've painted with me, which is great, because that is the goal, is to just be loose and not so tight. Suggestive, keep it very suggestive, right? But if this is not your pace, then don't go at this pace. Okay, go at your pace. I don't want you to end up with a painting you're not happy with. I want you to be happy with your painting. Of course I do. But just find your own pace and know that the recording will be there, and you could go back and pick up any section that you want to. You could review anything. You could make sure you got all the things that I got. You can hear the colors and all of the things that I'm doing, the different techniques again and again and again. This is just all shadow violet. I'm going to do his other braid on his other side, which is sort of coming out of that white part of the feather headdress. And so I'm sort of twisting it around and giving it a little bit opportunity to look, they're not braids, we know they're braids. We know it's hair. This is, very, this is what their hair looks like, but it can look very feathery the way the feathers look. Let it sort of flow around into to appear like braids. And you know what, at the end, if people don't know what it is, don't worry about it. It's okay. It is what it is. The photo itself doesn't really have a very strong description of what this is. So you don't have to be figuring it out. What you need to do is look at shapes and paint shapes, paint shadows. That's really your job, is to interpret all these wonderful things that we see in this photo. And so I am spreading the hair braids out much in the same way that I did the feathers. I'm feathering it into both sides a little bit and following this darkness that comes down here. Feather it into the red section of his shirt so you don't have a hard edge. So the hair is sort of coming in and creating a bit of a shadow. Just a little bit under his chin there. Just feathering this out a little bit so I don't have a hard edge there. And you can go in where you see like nice dark shadows, like right in here. There's a beautiful dark shadow where that white headdress is coming down. If you see it and you want to paint that shadow, if you're where I am, great. If you're not there, don't worry. It's something you could always go back and do. This is still pretty wet, so I'm not going to touch his face. I want to go in and smooth all that out with another glaze. What I would like to do right now is go in and add some red and turquoises to his clothes. That's my next step. So the red, you can actually take the red and mix it with a little bit of, let me bring this into, you could take your bright red, your deep red, your light red, whatever, and mix it a little bit in your palette with your shadow violet. And what that'll do is it's going to tone down that red to do that center area right in here. Oh, that's a nice deep dark red. That's good. And where it goes into an area like, let's say, right here by his neck, this is pretty dark here. We could just feather that, and we're just going to make those marks just dissipate and disappear. And again, don't worry if you're not where I'm at. To be where you are, and you'll be able to follow the recording. Okay, so don't worry. Don't rush. If you're not up to where I am, don't worry. If you can't keep up, that's great. If you're not there yet, don't worry.
Jan, I'm sorry, you said it was the red and the turquoise?
Nope, I used my red and my shadow violet.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm using my deep red and my light red. I'm using them both. And I'm just mixing them a little bit. See, my shadow violet is right here. That blob that I put on there, and I'm just pulling it down and adding my red, and it's making this beautiful deep red, which is great. Perfect for what we want. And good questions if you're right where I am, or it's just slightly behind me, which makes complete sense. I'm tooling out those white details that he has on his outfit. I don't know, what would you call it? His getup. And when it comes into against the hair, you're going to take your shadow violet and you're going to just add more so that it gently moves into shadow in his, the hair is going gently into shadow of his shirt there, his red shirt. I'm sure there's proper names for all this stuff, but let me back out and show you. There's not a very sharp delineated line here because it's soft, right? It's soft. But the red is a nice deep dark red, and it's a little deeper and richer and muddier because of the shadow violet. Otherwise, it would just be too bright and it would just be too fake looking. And just adding a little bit more shadow violet down here at the base of his hair and the shirt, and just not delineating where the hair ends and the shirt begins. It's just a big old shadow, which you can do with your shadow violet. You could really do the same thing with your turquoise if you felt so inclined to do that, to tone it down. I'm just going to find some nice turquoise areas to add a little bit of, to start that process. So that's on his shoulder, on his left shoulder. There's one on his right shoulder right here. I am not using phthalo turquoise. It's a little too staining. This is a more of an opaque turquoise that I'm using. The phthalo would be a little bit more transparent, and yet it would also be very, very staining. And if you put turquoise or red in the wrong spot, nobody is going to know. So don't you worry about any of that. This is all just the outfit that we see, and painting these beautiful pieces of our country's history. And I am putting this right over all of the nice shadows that I added with the shadow violet, just to soften it a little bit and give the outfit a little bit more feeling that it's in shadows and it's not just straight colors. You definitely have a feeling of other things going on here in the body, in the outfit. So you could take any of these colors and tone them down a little bit with your shadow violet. If you need another little blob of it on your palette, add it. If I added my red straight out of my palette, it just would be too powerful, too strong, too red. But this tones it down nice, and it does give it a nice feeling of a it being red, and yet it's not that intense red that comes right out of our palette. It's toning it down a little bit. You could do it with Shadow Violet. You can also do it with neutral tint. Neutral tint is really good for that as well. But I figured the Shadow Violet already has blue and pink in it, so I figured what a good way to go. And you could see how I'm taking these stripes and I'm wrapping it around his shoulder. It's not straight. That's really important that you see that as something to depict that it is wrapping around a body. Very FIT, my golden days of college, going and studying to be an illustrator of fashion. And we studied anatomy, and we learned to make sure that we suggested the body underneath the clothes. That's what I'm doing here. With that wrapping, that's what we're doing. And it's there in the photo, so you can definitely see it absolutely there. And really, I'm keeping us sort of away from the face. My face is almost dry. I'm going to start going back into it very, very shortly. This is a little more in shadow. This is a little bit more in the sunlight, so it's a little brighter. So I'm going to use a little bit more color and a little bit less Shadow Violet. Be where you are. Don't worry about keeping up with me. Just dropped a little Shadow Violet underneath that red to throw that little bit of shadow there. And we're predominantly going to be doing this with the 4 colors: our red, our turquoise, our Shadow Violet, and our Dragon's Blood. We'll see if it needs anything else at the end. We'll see. My guess is probably not, since I've done this. I'm calling him a medicine man this time, since I've done him before. I think I used any other. I might have used a little gold in the other one. Just waiting for this to dry a little bit so that I could come down here. In the meantime, I'm going to add a little bit of Shadow Violet. Let me go a little closer for you, show you what I'm going to do. Just add a little bit of Shadow Violet in here, just so it's not so white. Just breaching it a little bit, letting it bridge into, come into that white area. Just tone it down a little bit. And a little drop shadow. Again, do this at your own pace when you're ready to do it. I just want to make sure it's here for you when you're ready to do it. And then I'm describing what it is that I'm doing. So now they have like a 3D effect. Okay. More to do here for sure. More to do everywhere. But really, now's the time I want to go back in and do a little bit more on his face.
I have a
So I'm gonna go-
question. I
Yes.
used, what did I use? I used Moon Glow instead of Shadow Violet because I don't have it.
That's fine. You should be fine with that. It
Okay,
might just be a little purplier, but you're in good shape. You should be fine. If you have a little bit of neutral tint or Payne's Gray, it might help tone it down a little bit, but you should be fine with that. Okay,
thank
good.
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'm going to go back in and just get my pink and my dragon's blood a little bit more. And I'm going to go in and add a second pass to this area here. Now I'm going to hold my paper a little bit at an angle. And the reason being is that it's going to create a bead. See these beads here? Let me go a little closer. It's going to create a bead, which I'm going to then use to carry the color down. So that as it dries, it's moving on down. See that bead appearing here? Utilize that for your brush to pick it up and move it across.
I'm
And you
sorry,
will-
Jan, where did you start adding the color?
Up on the top here. Right on the top, right where I was on the top. And use the bead to carry the next wave of depth down into his face. So with the tip of my brush, I'm just utilizing that bead with a little bit more color on my brush to make it a little deeper and richer. So I started at the top, just working my way down. Jawline is right there. Going to go a little darker there with his ear here. Just adding a little bit more color, but it's soft because it's wet. See the bead? Carry the bead down. And add more color as you need it. Like this is really dark in here, so drop in more color while it's wet. You could drop in more shadow violet right against here. Perfect thing to do. Keep it soft. And now it really smoothed everything out a little bit more. I'm going to go in with my brush, just a little bit more color. What you're experiencing may not be quite what I have going on. So I'm just going to move through this one more time. We'll go in, we'll do a little bit more with his neck and his jawline, very strong jaw. You can see how much darker his neck is than his face. And this whole area is pretty wet right now, you know, so you can find colors that you could drop in. Like if I wanted to go in and drop in a little bit more turquoise, maybe like right here and feather it in. Remember that these are complementary colors. Orange and blue are complements. So they're going to tone each other down, which is just perfect. Yeah, I added some turquoise right to his cheekbone there. Let's see how that dries. Yep. To create a shadow. As it mixes with the dragon's blood, they do tone each other down. They do, they do, they do. Yep, learn to work with the complement, learn to work with other colors in the face. That, you know, and I've spoken about it, but it really, really bears a real great sense of, you know, repeating this is, again, that was, believe it or not, another lesson from my FIT days. And it was all about seeing colors in faces, in skin tones. Very, very big lesson that there's underneath our flesh, there's so many colors. Our native hereditary background, some of us are olive, some of us are fairer, some of us have more green or violet tones. And so we actually were sensitized to see all of the violets and whatnot that are underneath the skin tone. It's the surface of the skin. And that those lessons, let me tell you something, were a long, long time ago. And yet they are still very much in me and very, very present in my work and in my observance of everything that I do, especially when I'm working with skin tones. So, yeah. Just adding a little bit of water, letting everything kind of slide down a little bit more and giving a little bit more oomph everywhere. And creating the shadow a little heavier. We'll go back into the face again. It's just got to dry. Don't try to overwork it too fast, too much at one time, because well, that's just when you overwork everything. Just have to let it dry in between and see what happens and not try to overcorrect too quickly. So let it dry and move to another area. just going to use a thinner, smaller brush to go in and just separate his upper lip from his lower lip. There's a beautiful shadow there. And it really amps up the expression on his face. His eyes really are in shadow, so they're not going to really see a whole lot of things that we normally would see in an eye. But this corner of his eye is really a nice place for a little a little turquoise. Okay, I'm going to move away from his face again and work on the rest of the areas on his body. And so I'm going to take, and again, follow at your own pace, paint at your own pace. Don't worry about where I am. I'm describing everything I'm doing for you to follow along at a later time. I don't want you to feel rushed. What I'm going to do is on the bottom here, I'm going to do a little bit of this area of the fringe. And I think I'm going to try to see if I could use a rigger to do this. So I'm going to take my turquoise and I'm mixing it with a little bit of my shadow violet to get a toned down version of the turquoise. And I'm just rivering fringe. So when I say river, what I'm doing is I'm just giving it some color and I'm letting it flow into each other. So when you add a little bit of water, it carries it up and over and through your mark. And it makes it a really beautiful, nice, continuous flow of color. Now, I'm just going to say something about a pattern like this. You don't need to do it all for it to start reading as fringe. So what you don't want to do is have all of this sophisticated marks going on everywhere here and then make these marks to be sort of rudimentary fringe. So again, that shadow violet is toning down our turquoise a little bit. It's not as bright as the other areas. And you can sort of see how I'm getting the feeling of fringe without painting every single piece of the fringe. If you need to practice this on a separate piece of paper, try it there first. Now I'm going to back out and just show you how it's saying fringe without it going crazy with all types of marks that would look very rudimentary. And I'm going to show you what I mean by rudimentary and what I don't want you to consider doing when you do this. Just carried that color kind of down a little bit, and his fringe is going all into here Okay, so let me get a scrap piece of paper here and just show you what I would like for you to avoid doing. And that would be when you're suggesting the fringe. Okay, old scrap piece of paper. We should have tons of it, but I'm just trying to find one piece of. Okay, here we go. So what I don't want you to do is to have your fringe be like this. And that's your fringe, okay? That will totally make this appear unrealistic. So it's hanging down, it's flowing in and around. It's not rudimentary. So I just want to point that out to you guys that that's not what we're looking to, to have done here. So if you're not sure on how to do it, just hold off and, try it in a section and see how you do with that. Okay. That is, yeah. Just make sure you're really if you have to paint it upside down to get the feeling of the fringe, then paint it upside down so that you're not assuming the shapes that you're seeing. And all I'm doing here is just dropping in a little bit of drop shadow, a little bit of shadow that's coming from the fringe. I don't really see it on the other side, so it's only on one side. But I do see this beautiful turquoise coming down here from his headdress right alongside of his braid. So I'm going to just carry that turquoise down and have that shape be right there. I don't know all the pieces of a Native American's dress, so we don't have to. All we have to do is know that we are being true to what we see, and they'll be happy, and we'll be happy. And along here, I'm just dropping in a little bit of my shadow violet, so it softly goes against, there's no hard edges here, it softly goes against the hair, against that turquoise piece coming down, which I assume is his braid. A lot to do here, no question about it. A lot going on. That's why we're here. I'm just working this whole right side rather, of his outfit. Looks like I didn't draw some of it, but you know what? You don't have to draw everything. You can paint, draw it with your paintbrush. It doesn't have to be all there. You can see it. You can suggest it. Paint it with your paintbrush. You don't have to have every mark here. That's just not what you need to do. So use your paintbrush as a means to address areas that need something going on, right? And you don't have to paint it all. A lot of it can be suggested. Now I'm getting a nice deep dark color. I'm going to add a little bit of my red to it. That dark color is my shadow violet, a little bit of my turquoise, Really just got a whole bunch of red in my turquoise. I don't want that. Okay, just add it there. And I'm just mixing this kind of really deep dark color. A lot of paint, not a lot of water, just enough water to do little areas that I want to do, like little details that I see. That kind of start making it appear as if it's these marks are all really his outfit. And some of these areas, like right over here, and I think even over here, I think they're perfect areas to do drips. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't have to suggest it. I don't have to paint it all. I can suggest it. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to bead up and going to give it a little bit of idea in terms of where I want it to go with my rigger, right? This is all kind of drippy down stuff. So fringe really can be so drippy and it'll say fringe. So that's what I want to do here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my color and I'm going to drop it on the top and let it just flow down. I'm adding my blue, I'm adding my red. And notice again, they're not perfect, but they are drips. And I think that there's some really good opportunities for drips here. Now, when the drips come down, what's going to happen is that they are going to lose some strength. So you want to be sure you give it more oomph, more color to let them do the drips. So otherwise, they're going to get too weak and they're not, and all the color is going to sit on the bottom. So you can turn your paper and tilt it up till the colors come up to the top and then revamp it and drop in more color. Once you create those strings for it to move down, those rivers for it to move down, you don't have to do them again. Now let me go closer to show you how they're just traveling down. See that red just traveling down there? I just tap the top, I tilt my paper, and it's just moving itself. This is one of the most fun things that we could do with watercolor. What it all is, I don't know. You don't have to know. It's Native American stuff. And yes, that gives me a very nice feeling there. I really like it. And I'm going to continue to do it a little bit more over here. If I add a little water to the bottom, it pushes the color back up to the top and it moves it beautifully. And of course, I'm just going to say it, by doing all of these things, we could see the face needs more work. We're going to wait on doing it until we get a little bit more done here, and it will start telling us how much more we need to do on the face. That's, You know, that's why I never really finish any one area. It requires that you work the entirety of the painting. Really important. And things that maybe you did before require a little bit more. Those feathers, I'm going to go back in and do a little bit more with them, not a whole lot. You have to determine if you need more on yours. It's not going to be a lot, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. It's just a couple of little marks. Not a lot. Just a couple little calligraphic marks. Just to pop it up a little bit more because it's dry now and it might need a little bit more. Of course, you can always add a little bit more turquoise and red into the feathers just to have it be a little bit fun, reach the palette a little bit, and, you know, integrate colors everywhere, right? Even if you don't see them. Just took my brush and I just integrated those marks and brought them into the, anchored them with a little bit of water to the paper. That's what I did. And again, I'm working around the painting to give us the opportunity to let the face dry and go in and do it one more time where we're just going to add some nice deeper, darker colors to it. I want this to go into shadow over here. So I'm just going to add a little color right there. And I'm going to take my bigger brush and feather it out a little bit. So it just all goes into shadow. Don't want it to be quite as hard as the rest of it is. Doing some drips here. Just because I love that watercolors gives us drips. going to throw this a little bit more in shadow right underneath the fringe there. Again, I'm waiting for this coolness to dry so that I could go back into the face again. So this gives you an opportunity to not work on an area too much and let it dry while you're working the rest of the painting. It's a good way to work. And it helps you get the painting done. It helps you to, really find a way to integrate all of the pieces into the painting, right? Otherwise, you're painting everything a little bit too piecemeal, and you don't want to do that. Do. All right, let me show you how I'm going to pretty much work on finishing it up. Pretty much this is dry, okay? There's a little bit of a bump here, which I'm going to work with. That just means it's a little bit damp. I'm just going to give it one more glaze over this, okay, is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work a glaze over this, over what's there right now. And so the reason being is that I can go in and I can find areas that are a little bit darker, like around his eye, right? Under his eye a little bit more. This area here a little darker. The side of the nose a little darker. We can go in and utilize these shapes to help us finish the face a little bit more or completely more. Okay, so if you could see, there's the line here that comes down. That's pretty hard there. There's a really hard mark there. So I'm using a little less water and more paint to achieve these kinds of marks. And in fact, I think I'm going to switch to even a bigger brush, but not as much water on this big brush. Okay, so you have to make sure that when you get your paint in here, all right, that's my dragon's blood and a little bit of my pink, that I'm not on the tip of my brush, I'm on the side of my brush, carrying the paint down. And my paper's a little bit tilted. And now I really want to get more paint on my brush. And I want to go under this jawline and really get in the hint at the ear, which comes from the jaw. There's the earlobe right there, right? We don't need to paint a whole, ear to know there's an ear there. I'm on the side of my brush, not the tip, side of my brush, dropping in more shadow underneath here. I'm going to drop in a little bit more shadow violet where his hairline is, because if I do it now, this is wet and it's going to go softly into his face. Otherwise, it's going to be a very hard mark, which I don't want. Actually, it went a little hard, so I'm going to take my other brush and just go a little bit, just give it a nice soft opportunity to move into the face. And now a little bit more shadow violet underneath the ear lobe into the neck. Right brush for the right job. Notice I'm using my pad here to control how much water is on my brush. That's looking good. I want to be sure I have more of those turquoise marks on his face. I want to make sure it's right here under his. That's a little harsh. I get it. I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to soften it into what's there. Because I really love that deep shadow there. Let me go a little closer and show you how I'm adding these little details. You don't have to add everything with the dragon's blood. You can go in and really find some nice shapes on his face with the turquoise. Is it bold? You betcha. Is it scary? You betcha. But there's a lot to be gained by doing it. A very artistic way of painting. And a great way to bridge the palette. And a great way to show shadows. And this area right in here by his neck is pretty dark right here. Yeah, I really love that turquoise there. If you're a little nervous about the turquoise, take your turquoise, mix it with a little bit of dragon's blood, and you find it tones it down and it gives you an interesting color that you could then go in and add it that way also. If you're not good at dropping in color and letting it, moving it, you can do it that way also. There's lots of ways to do it. I'm just presenting a couple of different options here. And of course, there's always the, wanting to go in and to kind of correct some of the things that we see here, or not. We see as we stand back from it and we add our matte board, which I'm getting, and we start seeing what we're happy with, what's working for us, what we may want to crop out or not. And it starts taking on a very finished look for yourselves. And what I love to do is just hang it and look at it fresh in the morning on a vertical, just tacking it onto a painting with a mat and seeing what that looks like. It's going a little bit darker right in here, and I'm going to blend it with a very dry brush. So you want to take your paint off your brush and your water and blend it in. That's a great way to work flesh tones. Just enough dampness on your brush just to figure out if you got the right color in the right space, in the right place. And we have Native American man. I think I'm going to call him Medicine Man. So what I want to just say is if you missed the features that are going on here, what I recommend you do is take your painting and your source and find these shapes and work upside down. It will throw your thinking off a little bit, but it'll increase your observation. So if you only look at these areas to gain that cast shadow and look at your whites, you'll be able to see and correct whatever might happen to need or correction or whatever. So that is tonight's portrait. I hope you enjoyed it. And from what I saw, it looked great. And yeah, so this is Jan Guarino, Fearless Watercolors. Thanks for joining me. I hope you had a good time. Practice those portraits. They're not easy, but they can be fun. And this was a really good one. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye now.